marketing is an investment, it's not an expense. Advertising is an expense, that's a different story. Marketing is not an expense. You have to be able to have something out there to drive customers to find you.
Good afternoon, good day, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening or where you're listening from, but it's your boy, your host, NaRon Tillman, and you are with me for another episode of Walk in Victory. If you're going to be successful in business, you have to be mindful of how you approach your marketing. With AI, we have help now where if we didn't have a huge budget for marketing, AI can help us get our brand out faster and stuff like that. But you still have to know what you're doing and not be lazy about how you present your products, goods, and services to the world. And not be cheap about how you present your products, goods, and services to the world. A lot of people invest, but they invest in the wrong thing. You have to know how much you're willing to spend to get a customer. You have to know how much you're willing to spend to get a customer. And then you have to realize how much that customer is worth. If you're spending way too much to get one customer, then you're doing your marketing wrong. If you're not spending at all to get a customer, you're just thinking that you built it and people are just going to walk in, then you're not doing enough at all. And today we're going to have a conversation centered around helping us to become better at understanding what tools and tricks we can use for our marketing. Melee, how are you?
Doing good. Then I was listening to some of the things you're saying. It gets me laughing. The problem I think for a lot of businesses, they need to invest, right? And marketing is an investment, it's not an expense. Advertising is an expense, that's a different story. But marketing is not an expense. You have to be able to have something out there to drive customers to find you at the end of the day. There is no version where people just find you without you doing something.
Let's unpack that because a lot of times people have this misnomer that because it's a good product to you, that people are just going to come running in. First of all, a lot of new business owners think that they're going to get support from their families and friends. That's usually the last people that support.
They're the ones that know you.
So if you're presenting your product to a new audience, you have to do something. And what are some of the first things that business owners should be taking into consideration when they're putting together or they're thinking about their marketing and their ad campaigns?
Yeah, let's just kind of focus on where we are in today's world, right? So
Mm-hmm.
today's world says you need a website first. It's not just about the website, it's about what are you saying on that website? How are you going to get people to understand who you are, what you're selling, and how it's going to benefit them? And more importantly, how easily can they interact with you, right?
Mm.
So if we can just kind of narrow the website down to that, that's a good starting point. I'm not going to get into the whole scenario of logos and colors and so on and so forth. Let's just assume that that's given. Um, the other side of it is now you have to also set up who's your target audience. If it's businesses, you need LinkedIn. If it's the consumer market, you want Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, right? Then there is the ongoing work to be able for people to be able to look at what it is that you're selling. So you need to post your blogs on your website. You have your social posts, right? So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and you're going to be posting information. Is it that you're posting that's going to grab people's attention? The other side of the equation is while you're also posting there, you want to go to conversations, especially let's say in Instagram, that are related to what it is that you're selling and get involved in those conversations, right? Throw in your likes, put in your comments, let people see you. And by default, when people see you on that post and your comment, they're likely to come to your profile and see what it is that you got there. And so if you're compelling enough, they're going to follow you, and hopefully they'll say, "Hey, I want to buy something from you." And so I think the process, can it be done with a small budget? And the answer is yes. But if you have a small budget, that means you can put a lot more sweat equity into it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's one direction to go in this, in your marketing approach.
And that's the direction that most people attempt to go in because they don't want to throw no money at it, right?
Well, there's that fear factor of, I don't want to go into debt, I don't want too much money, et cetera, et cetera. And in the scenario that I just described, we're talking about growth hacking, right? I mean, that's the terminology that we've used in the marketing industry where you're using your sweat equity, and you're spending whatever 24 by 7 online, posting things, commenting, reacting, and trying to get people to notice you at the end of the day. And so that's the way to go, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Now, the other way, when we look at building out a funnel page or something like that, where we have the user in our ecosystem now, and we're getting them to make a decision. Let's talk about some of the things that you're seeing happening now.
I mean, let's fast forward now to where we are in technology as it
Mm-hmm.
relates to marketing, right? And so we've got artificial intelligence. I was on another podcast yesterday, in which I was presenting the idea of AI agents. When we talk about low budgets, we talk about growth hacking. One scenario is to consider using AI agents. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking about agents in which you are creating a workflow. And the platform that I would suggest for a lot of people is to take a look at the one that's N8N, right? Nancy, the number eight, and then N as in Nancy. You're creating a workflow using multiple types of agents, right? So you got your chat GPT as one agent. In other words, where you create the text copy of information. You may have another agent that's doing the creative development. You have another agent that's taking the results of both of those and then posting it to LinkedIn or to any of your social communities. Or you have an agent that's creating a blog article and is posting it directly to your website's blog, right? Reducing the amount of sweat equity that you're doing is to use AI agents and use them in a workflow scenario that is consistent. In other words, there are no questions. And if there are no questions, meaning that they're not sending you some type of a message saying, hey, can you approve this, right? It's got to be a workflow where there is no approval process. And and can count on the fact that these agents will do the work consistently the same way how you want it, based on how you set up the workflow and post for you, right? And they can go as far as commenting for you as well.
We live in this AI age, and a lot of people are running away from it. You said an 8 N
M8N, correct.
M as in man
N as in Nancy.
AI age. We live in this AI world, and it's new, it's fun. Like we see a lot of
Yeah.
advancement happening. A lot of companies are really taking advantage of the agents and employing them, and it's helping to reduce costs in some areas. It's helping us get speedy along. Where do you see within the next year the agents and the ability to help small business owners? Do you think we're
Yeah.
going to continue with the innovation?
Yeah, so let's start with the one thing that you said, which I think is very real. And that reality is that we have a lot of people that are afraid of AI. The reality is you need to embrace it. It's not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, it's going to envelope our world even more so, especially in business and especially in technology. The idea that you're going to be afraid of the technology is not being business logical. You have to figure out how you're going to be competitive. You have to figure out how you're going to generate revenue. And being fearful, that's not even an option. There is a reality check here. That's situation number one. And that kind of goes with my four A's of change. In other words, you need to anticipate change, you need to accept change, which tends to be the hardest part. You need to adapt to changes and you need to adopt the changes, right? The last two tend to be a lot easier for a lot of people. So we need to embrace AI. That's first and foremost. And with that also means you need to learn how to use AI. Just
Hmm.
because it's a computer and just because there's a keyboard there doesn't mean that you're going to be effective at using AI. As a matter of fact, the world of AI now, roughly about 3 years in the public's view and out in the marketplace, has been evolving so fast that you really need to learn how to use it properly. You can go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to teach you how to use it. It will do it. Honestly, it's perfect. The other thing is like these AI agents, right? You need to understand how to use these agents and create these workflows. I think is the direction we're going to see a lot of things going in the next year. We need to automate as many routine, mundane tasks as possible, and we need to increase the amount of work that we're doing. And so, understanding how to use AI, learning how to use it, how these agents and how these workflows work, I think these are all, this is some of the more important elements as we go look at the next 12 months, for example, or through 2026.
I'm glad that you said that the AI isn't going anywhere. We're on the heels of the NFT fad, where most people are thinking that AI was just going to be like another whole NFT thing, where it's just going to balloon and then go away. But those people who are embracing and employing and becoming better at prompt engineering and understanding how to use AI and prompt it right, the better we prompt, the better results. What type of advantage do you think those who early adapters have?
But there's one quick answer to that, and that's the fact that they're going to be competitive. My second A is about accepting change. And I will tell you that in my history, in my 38 years of having my marketing agency, and we've been in the digital world since 2004, so it's been a long ride. But I can tell you that the one thing that always hinders businesses from moving forward is to accept the changes that are in front of them. And there is a reality. If you wait for that change to prove itself, so that you are, you're secure in making that decision, I guarantee you're late. By the time some change, whatever that change is, especially technology wise, by the time it proves itself, you're already late because there's something else new on the market and you're already moving into the next change. So my suggestion is when the change happens, you need to accept it. And why are you accepting it? Is because you want to be competitive. You need to get on that change train, okay? And you need to stay on it. Because the moment your competitors who are on that train are moving ahead of you. And what's that going to do? It's going to cost you to catch up. Accepting change is an emotional response. I'm suggesting that people who don't accept it are basing their decision on emotion. It's not based on logic. The logical response to business and generating revenue is to accept the change and move forward and do so as quickly as you possibly can, especially in the world that we're living in.
This is a business question, but it's the business of religion. Because most religions will look at AI as something not to be embraced and may not adapt to this change that well. What would you say to someone who's running an organization, a nonprofit, or a church, or imam, or something like that? How would you try to enlighten them that this is something that's important for even in that setting in order for them to get their message out?
Regardless of if it's a nonprofit or it's a for-profit business, one of the things that I've done with clients is to coach them through these changes, right? And especially if they're reluctant to accept it and move forward. Then what you have to do is go through the logical process of acknowledging and being empathetic to the situation while simultaneously trying to explain to them what's happening with their competitors. And so some of the things that we've done in the past is I'll just put together a competitor metrics Excel file. Here's the client and here's your 10 competitors and these are the major metrics across the top, and take a look at where you stand and sort the Excel file by each of these metrics. And if the client is below the halfway mark, they can visually see what's going on. And on the one hand, yes, we're being empathetic to their emotional response of trying to hold back. On the other hand, trying to educate them that here is where you stand. And based on where you stand, you need to come to grips with yourself and figure out how to move forward. And so I think the idea of doing the competitor analysis tends to get the job done to say, yes, this is where I'm going to go. Now, for nonprofits, what that also means is that for them, it's about they need to move forward so that they can get the donations that they're looking for, right? That's how most nonprofits operate is they need donations. Well, if the donors are saying, well, you know what, I'm not going to donate to you because you're not up to speed and you're quote unquote, and I say this loosely, wasting money by staying in the old system, then the donors are less likely to donate, right? So I think for nonprofits, that's the other side of the equation is you need to go chase down money. And if the donors are saying, well, you're wasting money because you're not moving forward, then they're not likely to donate.
The fact that you even put it that way, where it can be looked upon like we're being wasteful because we're not staying on top of the innovation. People who are forward thinkers, people love the forward thinking person, right?
Hey,
the
listen,
yeah, me too. So I've embraced I've always been one who looked at technology, who didn't shy away from technology. And I think within the next year or two, we have a great opportunity to raise up men and women that are vocal leaders in this industry. Like if they learn it, we have room for fresh voices. There's room for financial increase. And I'm saying to our listeners, our audience, look at your young adults and start to push them in this way now because you can learn this stuff without spending 4 years in college.
yeah. I mean, there's been some debate about the value of college education as it stands today. There's a high probability we need to rethink our educational system as it relates to how technology is impacting social structure and whether or not the current systems of education really meet the demands of the future. I think we're going to see change, perhaps not as quickly as we'd like, unfortunately.
Well, you know, that's a tricky industry because if you think about it, you have this hierarchies, this system, which was almost wrecked because of COVID. Because now people are starting to say, "Well, why am I paying this principal $600,000,
Yeah.
$100,000 a year? Like, why do we have all of these antiquated systems and people can actually learn in a different way and faster
Yep.
and more efficient?" And but when you have tenure in a place like New York, where the school systems is really you have a
Mhm.
system that's built
Right.
around wrangling and educating.
Yeah.
Uh, when we upsert the system, now how are we going to replace those jobs? How are we going to justify the chancellor making $600,000 a year?
Right. I mean, there are jobs that used to exist 200 years ago that don't exist today. And the reality is that same concept is going to continue. As mankind moves forward, certain things are going away and certain things are start coming in and replacing it. The main difference between where we were 200 years ago and where we are now is the fact that people are living longer. And so the question is, how does the economic system support the fact that as those jobs go away of people of older age who are living longer, how do we continue to support them in the new economy? That's the question that has to be answered from that standpoint. The fact that jobs are going to go away because of how things are changing, that's not going to change. That's going to always happen. What we have to do is address the unintended consequences of where we are.
So you're an older gentleman and you adapt well, right? Why do you think that we're going to see some of our seniors really start to embrace this AI? And what will you
Yeah.
say to them that as they're listening to, if someone was listening to us talking, they say, "I don't understand, like I don't even understand my smartphone. How do I
Right.
understand
Yeah.
this?"
Exactly. exactly. I mean, first of all, I can tell you that there's a number of people in my generation that have embraced technology and use it well. My dad, who had passed at the age of 91 5 years ago, he was amazing if you put a computer in front of him, and he understood how to use his iPhone too. I think that in the older generation, we have a lot of people like that. I think the suggestion that I would have, especially based on the tools that we have today, is literally to ask them to go to ChatGPT and ask a question, right? Something nice and simple. It doesn't have to be too complicated. It doesn't have to try to achieve some goal. Just ask them to interact with ChatGPT. Ask it a basic question. What's the weather like today in whatever, right? And then they're going to get a response. And based on that response, they can ask the next question and slowly work their way through the process of having ChatGPT educate them, have ChatGPT tell them what steps to take to be able to accomplish something, let's say on their iPhone. I think they would find it amazing the amount of information that's available to them at their fingertips. And easily accessible. That's the other side of the question. It's easily accessible, whether they're using a laptop or, and which is the one that I would recommend for a lot of them. I don't know how well they would be able to achieve this on an iPhone, for example, or any type of mobile device, but on a laptop or a tablet, they would be able to achieve this pretty easily. So that's my recommendation based on the tools that we have available, based on the fact that it's easily accessible, is to turn around and use ChatGPT and start by asking a simple question.
Listen, this conversation's not going anywhere. It's only going to intensify and get deeper. If you're listening, you know what we do. We don't ask for cash apps, Venmos, or any of those things. But what we do ask is that you support our guests. You can go follow them on their social media. All of their handles are in the description. And that you hit like, subscribe, and you share our episodes so that other people can join our Walk in Victory party. Walkinvictory.me is our website. There you will find our book is coming out and all the other things that we are presenting to the world. And we want you to be a part of it. And we thank you for your support. Don't walk with your head down. Don't walk being afraid of technology. Together, we walk in victory. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.